This is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the Noon News. I'm Andrea Lutz. This afternoon on Capitol Hill, Senate leaders are bringing a voting rights bill to the floor, even though it won't get the 60 votes needed to clear a procedural filibuster to start debate on the legislation. Skylar Henry has more details from Capitol Hill.
It takes 60 votes to start that debate.
Senator Chuck Schumer says he's pushing forward with the voting rights bill, even though Republicans plan to block it.
They don't want to talk about it. They want to sweep it under the rug and hope that Americans don't hear about it. But Americans will hear about it.
Among the provisions in the bill, the For the People Act would create a national automatic system for registering voters and establish national standards for mail-in and absentee ballots.
It's the latest version of the so-called For the People Act, which is a massive, massive takeover, federal takeover of election law.
Democrats say it's necessary to combat new restrictive voting laws passed in Republican-controlled states.
Since I spoke here in March, Georgia and 13 other states have enacted these voter suppression bills into law, 14 in total.
Republicans remain unanimously opposed to the federal legislation.
Today, the Senate's going to fulfill our founding purpose, stop the partisan power grab and reject S1.
Senator Joe Manchin also previously expressed his opposition to the bill. The West Virginia Democrat met with President Biden about it yesterday.
The president expressed how important this bill is to him.
This will be a fight of his presidency.
Manchin has offered a compromise that has won the support of former President Barack Obama and voting rights advocate Stacey Abrams.
We're looking at a much fairer, a much better approach to take.
But Republicans remain unconvinced. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the failure to begin debate on the voting rights bill in the Senate could prompt a new debate among lawmakers about where changes need to be made to the filibuster rule in the Senate. This afternoon, a woman is recovering at an Idaho hospital after being injured by a bison. Officials with Yellowstone National Park say it's unclear how the encounter happened. The 30-year-old was hiking with another person on the Storm Point Trail when she was attacked, and she was airlifted to a hospital in Idaho Falls. Her injuries are described as significant. Still, she's recovering, and her current condition is not known. All right, we are checking in on the weather with our Miller Robson. Things are set to warm up.
Yes,
wow.
You got that right. Yeah, a couple days we're going to be in the 90s, and then we're going to cool down, and then we're going to warm back up, and then we may see some 100s. My job here is done, yes. It's going to get kind of smoking hot out there, and that's next week, so we'll keep an eye on that. Here and now, though, we're looking at temperatures in the 70s and 80s across the state. For the most part, staying dry, but you'll notice down there in the southwest corner of the state, had this little ripple of energy coming up. So around the Absarokas and the Beartooths, we may see a little bit of rain tonight. Maybe a slight chance of rain across the state tomorrow. A better chance on Thursday, though. I'll explain why coming up with the main forecast here in just a bit. Andrea.
All right, Miller, thanks so much. Okay, turning to the fires that are burning around our state. The Robertson Draw Fire south of Red Lodge, now more than 50% contained after fire officials say that the fire didn't grow too much yesterday. Officials explained there was an increase in smoke coming from the fire yesterday, but that was due to burnout operations along the containment line. The fire is just under 30,000 acres, and today fire officials expect increased fire activity as the weather does get warmer and drier, just as Miller was talking about. Near Townsend, the Deep Creek fire, now 75% contained, holding steady at just around 5,000 acres. Fire crews focused on holding and improving the fire line to the north and south of Highway 12. And the cause of this fire, it is still under investigation. A Montana Highway Patrol trooper is being hailed a hero for her part in saving victims of a helicopter crash that went down last week while battling that Deep Creek fire. Amanda Villa is seen here in her dash camera video running towards that downed aircraft. Well, then she makes contact with one of the people involved in the crash and learns there are still 4 others inside. She helped all of them crawl out of a window, and just a few minutes later, that helicopter, well, it engulfed in flames.
I just knew that I couldn't just stand there and let those people stay in there while it was on fire, and that could have happened. So my biggest concern was we need to get these people out, we need to get away from here, and that was focus number 1.
Incredible video to watch there. There is a crash report that did reveal that the accident could have been prevented. Wind played a role in the helicopter going down, but there were procedures that could have been followed to stay in the air. The pilot and crew have opted to retrain for adverse wind conditions, and a toxicology report for the pilot did come back clean. Concerts and live performance venues are slowly starting to come back to life. That's evident in Montana as Logjam presents and Missoula rolls out its summer lineup. And smaller venues host regular performances. But thousands of music venues across the country are waiting for funding that they've been promised by Congress. Chris Conte takes a look at why that money isn't necessarily getting to the people who need it.
Shuttered stages across the country slowly starting to come back to life. Just to watch him die. But Chris Cobb is still looking at a lot of silence.
Once the money's gone, we close, and we just get closer every day.
He's the owner of Exit in Nashville, a small independent music venue that's lost more than 90% of their revenue in the last 15 months.
We're on the edge of a cliff with a huge number of venues right there at the edge, and they're about to go over, and they won't come back.
Chris thought he'd be getting some much-needed help from Congress, help that was promised back in December, but it's still silent here.
It's been exhausting, in all honesty.
Audrey Fix-Schaefer is with the National Independent Venue Association. As COVID forced the closure of thousands of music venues across the country, this nonprofit began lobbying Congress hard for help. And they got it in the form of $16 billion in stimulus aid. But there's a problem.
Almost 6 months from the passage of the legislation, and still the vast majority of our members haven't seen a dime from the $16 billion emergency relief program.
More than 14,000 performance venues across the country have applied for that stimulus aid. Only 90 of them have gotten any money.
It's not COVID that's keeping us closed now. It's the fact that the funding hasn't flowed, which is keeping us closed now. And it shouldn't be like this.
The Small Business Administration is supposed to be administering the grants. Website errors, though, have plagued the process with trouble. But venues need that money to help hire back staff, place down payments on booking bands. Many can't reopen without it.
This industry can't flip on and flip off like a light switch, unfortunately.
There's a reason Congress was so eager to help. 12 million people across the country have jobs tied to live events. For every $1 spent on a ticket at small venues, a total of $12 in economic activity is generated within communities, on restaurants, hotels, taxis, and retail establishments.
For so many of the venues and promoters, it's demoralizing. It's frightening because they've exhausted all of the funds that they did have.
And living with the shades pulled.
Even as Americans begin to return to shuttered stages across the country, not all of them are getting the help they were promised. I'm Chris Conte.
All right, the Small Business Administration added more staff to help get that music venue grant money out. And the SBA is also implementing procedures used to help get restaurants PPP funds, all in an effort to fix that backlog. All right, we've got more to come on today's new news, including taking a look at the long career of a Butte Silverbow undersheriff. This as he gets ready to hang up that badge. But first, Miller's back in with a look at the statewide weather forecast.